Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Ball Watching. We've got a loaded show on deck for you all today. Cannot wait to break down some of the news. Justin, I think at this time last week, when we were kind of predicting the future on what would be the topics or the segments for this week. I don't know if we could have predicted all of this going on, but my word, the club has been busy in more ways than one. How are you feeling, Justin? It's a little bit of whiplash this last week or so.
Yeah, feeling good. We had a nice little time up north. What was it, like 2 weeks before we were going up there to go ice fishing? Our friend Andrew Henry's mother Sonia sent us a picture, and the lake was wide open. Then we get there, and it's minus 17 degrees, and we can run on the lake, slide on the lake. Shout out John Crone for that video. And we could drill some holes as well. So had a great time up there. But yeah, the news did not stop while we were gone. If anything, it ramped up, and it's showing you that Corey Ray is just absolutely putting in work right now, for better or for worse.
Yeah, busy season, indeed, at St. Louis City. We've got a bunch of news. We've got a Klaus outgoing, sad face. Going to talk a lot about that. We've got an incoming confirmed with Rafael Santos. We've got another rumored incoming. Sounds like a matter of time. And we've got a bunch around U.S. Open Cup, some MLS updates in terms of transfer window changes, roster regulations. We'll keep that, as much as you would need to slash want to know what's relevant in terms of you all. But we got a lot to cover today. So, Justin, let's jump in. Like to start off a little spicy, a little hot to kind of get things going, juices flowing. Are you on deck?
Oh yeah, I'm ready for
All
our
right.
little retweet or delete segment. So Jake, the initial one that comes to mind, which I'm not even going to ask because it's did the club make the right decision in selling Klaus at this time? And I would say absolutely not. And I'm almost positive that you would retweet that. So I'm going to add a little spin to it and say, do you think that it was appropriate for the club to announce a signing of another player 2 hours and 59 minutes after announcing that you were letting go your franchise leading goal scorer and first DP ever?
Appropriate's the key word there, right?
And I'm going to say it's not appropriate, and you got to retweet or delete that.
If that's me, I would inappropriate. Yeah, if I'm in the chair, I know everyone's got reasons, and I'm sure there are reasons, but like I think, and Justin, this is maybe goes back to like what we've been trying to do with Klaus's narrative the last couple of seasons is I just feel like everyone kind of overlooks the impact and the contributions to the club. And yeah, you might have gripes about on the field with goal output or injuries in 2024 or whatnot. But I just don't want to become a place that doesn't show respect and admiration for those that have worn the badge, especially for so long, one of the originals for us. And I did feel a little bit, like there was some neglect there today, right? When we saw the final announcement, everyone knew it was coming, but then to have it but basically like undone a couple minutes, it felt like later with the Santos signing, and you saw him in training today. Like I know you probably have to announce it because there's training now pictures. He was signed well before, right? So yeah, I just feel like it doesn't really do the amount of respect that Klaus deserves. Like it's your day. You should be like the only thing that's talked about today. And it just kind of felt like it was paved over.
Oh, it was absolutely paved over. And I mean, to your point, Jake, if the signing was done early, we know that Klaus's signing was done on Wednesday night. That thing was
Yeah.
the deal was done and dusted. So it's been what, 5 days? And yeah, now it came out. Now it's like official, but it's like and
Yeah.
it just seemed a little bit disrespectful, in my opinion. Like either that or like don't wait until 11 a.m. Give him a little bit of breathing room. I just thought it was kind of rude. Like if you saw it now, if you anybody go look at our story right now, I mean, Klaus is on the training ground for them today too. So obviously it had to be announced by today. Did it have to be on the same day for both sides? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, again, the only thing I can think about is like, and what we've learned over time is the onus goes to the receiving team to sort of drive the activities because it's their thing, it's their player. They get to kind of control the narrative or like with their timing. That's the only thing I can think about that maybe is like an extraneous force that influenced that. But Justin, I mean, you kind of brought it up already. Let's talk about the guy. I mean, there's so many different perspectives we can jump into, but I think most importantly, let's go back to what we were just talking about here with just overall feelings. I personally feel like it's a really, really sad bummer of a day in the fan base. And I know there are some people that have very quick to move on or very quick to say, well, he wasn't the guy that we thought he was going to be. And everyone is totally entitled to their opinion. But from everything that I've ever watched of him, all of the good times that he gave us, and from seeing him as a person thrive and be so happy here. Just in St. Louis sports, it sucks to see your star players go. And there's no guarantees that someone comes in right away and fills those boots. And I for one, would definitely say will not be soon. So to have a servant like that depart, yeah, it was, we'll get to the deal and the money, and there's other good factors that go into it as well. But, just as a fan, that to me is a huge bummer. He's a big name in the back of the jerseys, big guy, big personality, big positive, person in the locker room, Justin. I want to say that first is like we try to be pundits and talk about, data and analyze games and what's going on behind the scenes, but sometimes you got to put the heart first. It's a crappy day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say, Jake, it's not just crappy for us. If you're the team and you are already down in Florida. You're fully expecting to move forward with the guys that are there, and you're just pulling out probably the largest piece of that. I would say when in a combination of both on and off the field, because I would say even in some of our darkest times, and I would say Leuven's one of those as well, and so is Berkey. But I feel like from a gel guy perspective, Leuven hasn't been there all the time, not to his own fault, but Klauss has been there through and through it all, and his own injuries and everything else. And even though, yeah, he might not be the number one goal scorer that you're looking for, and like people are saying, Ben Yeager saying, oh, it's $2 million, go spend it on someone better. 10 goals last season. He's averaging a goal every 228 minutes on his career here. I think it's an incredible guy, both in the locker room and then you pull that out on the field. Yeah, you can try to recreate those goals, but that's a gaping hole from a chemistry perspective right before a team that is kind of fighting for the wooden spoon last season is going to take the season. So kind of also details on this, Jake. What was the trade? Just for anybody that didn't see it already, it was a cash trade, just straight up. We got paid $2.375 million, which is the largest cash trade in City's history. They made sure to put that in the article. How often are cash trades? It's not really a notable thing for me.
Brand new, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, cool. That's not a fun fact. Klauss, 28 years old, has 27 goals in 3 years for us. 16% of our total output in goals. That is not going to be easier to replace, and I think it's going to be harder to replace someone like that in the locker room.
Yeah, and you've kind of already brought up some perspectives, but let's jump into it because I feel like to tell this whole story, you got to look at everyone's different shoes that they look at this from. And so let's talk about the club for a second. And by the club, we're going to start with just the front office. For this, 2.375 mil, let's just call it 2.3 so we don't say 2.375 for the rest of the show, is actually a very good number to get on a guy with those stats and in the final year of his deal. So in terms of salvaging value and the term on his deal left, good money. So get a strong offer from the Galaxy. From what I can tell, that number moves slightly upwards. We maybe played a little bit of hardball there. I'm proud of us. Got a little bit more. That's a good number. Clearly, I don't think the club was showing an intent to keep him past this season. I know that decision with the option was made pre-Corey Ray, but post-Lutz. So it's kind of in that really soft, squishy middle ground there. But if we weren't really looking at re-signing him, at all for past 2026, again, this is a good business move. But for the team, Justin, the culture, the locker room presence, we've heard some incredible stories of things that he's tried to make happen in the locker room and just to kind of get the guys gelling and frankly forgetting about all the crap that's going on the field for a lot of last season and all the frustration and pain. He's a great friend to many. We know Betcher being one of those really close ones. Look no further, Justin, than is there any bromance outside of Betcher and Klauss and Gioacchini in 2023 that is more front and center for us to look at? And who's the common thread? It's Klauss. I mean, locker room gonna shift a little bit with an absence like his.
That's what's going to be the tough part, Jake. Like I said, I think it's a great spot from a cash perspective. And then if you look at it from the LA Galaxy's perspective as well, great spot for them. They have the money to spend. They have an open DP spot with Ricky Push out with another injury this year. That's something completely different that we've kind of already mentioned on re-tearing our ACL in the offseason. But it's a rental for 1 year for them. So they're just trying to plug a hole that they have. And then for us, we're getting a good amount of cash for a 1 year deal. I get it from a business perspective. I think then, though, you have to consider the team's morale, not only on the current chemistry of it, but Jake, then it kind of shows you where am I in the totem pole of how quickly can I be shoved out? Because if you look at it from this perspective, Joao Klauss and his wife were looking at and touring homes in St. Louis on January 9th and confirmed that his wife was scheduled to go back to said home last Wednesday, but canceled day of because she was sick. They were fully expecting to stay here, doing what they could to stay here. and then it just didn't happen. So not only a chemistry in the locker room for me, it's more of what are the rest of these guys thinking and how easily can they be shipped out?
And let's go back even to the club for a second and talk about Corey Ray. In the quote where they talked about it, he mentioned this was not the plan this season to let him go. So Corey Ray was not planning the striker search, was not looking for a new central forward because we had Klaus this season. And it sounds like it was an opportunistic situation with the Galaxy, and one thing leads to another, and he's gone. But this was not the plan, heading into it. And I think because Corey Ray appreciated the value that he brought to the team. Let's talk about the fans, Justin. This is your club's all-time leading goal scorer by a good margin. He's a popular name on the back of jerseys, a big brand himself, again, a positive face in the community. Let's talk about Klauss, Justin. You talked about the home situation. We knew that he wanted to stay here, right? Like the writing's on the wall. He wanted to stay. He was going to be a TAM player this year and probably TAM for the next contract, whatever that is, either. Anyway, so not a DP anymore. For us, I just really thought, Justin, just with his desire to stay, him being such a focal presence in the lineup and in this community for the last 3 years, and all of that shapes up for a good kind of club friendly deal to shape out, the final big contract of his career that I'm sure he'd been willing to meet halfway on. And it just kind of feels like we might really be, kicking ourselves for this one, because I'm not saying, let me just be clear. I'm not saying Klauss was going to take us to MLS Cup or Klauss was going to take us into the future and be the guy that everyone remembers as the reason why, we were uber successful. But he could have been a huge piece of it. And whether that is leading from the front or whether that is off the bench, things are going wrong. Let's throw on the big bear, see if he can climb up, win some headers, or just offer something different in attack that maybe our new attacker wouldn't. I just feel like people wanted him to be the star, the face, everything for us. And just because he's not does not mean that he wasn't successful in his time here or he couldn't have been a good piece of the team moving forward. So I worry, Justin, because I really think him in a Galaxy setup with Payne still and Peck to his left and right, maybe underneath a Marco Royce as well. Like he's going to be a good piece of this LA Galaxy attack. And by the way, I'm going to watch him because I really hope the best for him. And I hope you all do too, because he was a servant here.
Yeah. I mean, I've had a hard time staying up for some West Coast games, Jake, but these are ones that I'm absolutely going to be paying attention to because I think he's going to do an incredible job for that team this year. I think that's what I'm saying. I think it's a great fit for the LA Galaxy. I just think that it's even harder for us. And like I said, I get it from a business perspective. That's a lot of cash for a 1-year deal on a guy that you don't even have the future rights to in the future, right? And it doesn't seem like we've had the best relationship inside the club with him as well. So you never know what could have happened there. But it's just one that hurts for me because that he's turned down deals with other teams to stay with us, and he's done what he could to stay with us. And at some point, when you keep getting offers, we keep offering him out. At some point, he kind of saw the writing on the wall. It's like, all right, well, if you don't want me, there are other teams that do.
It's not the end of the world, but it is definitely a sad day. Got to give it the respect and the conversation it deserves because, again, I just don't want us to become that club that treats players that way. And there's obviously many sides to the story, and we've tried to highlight a couple of them here. And maybe this was just the perfect kind of culmination of a lot of different things. But, just for a guy that we really appreciated on this show, especially. It's a tough day, and especially not knowing what's next. Because again, if we know that this wasn't planned, we also can make, I feel like, a pretty logical assumption that there will not be backfill in the near term. Like I have a significant hypothesis that I think Betcher, Toyshirt are going to be given the reins and see what they can do for us, especially through the first part of the season. And I really hope they thrive in it. But there's not really a backup, right? If Toyshirt really has some injury issues or some little knocks here or there, or Betcher has some of the form in front of goal that we saw from him last season, I really worry about our goal scoring output.
Yeah, so Jake, I would say when you mentioned that and we look at this upcoming season, I mean, to your point, if Corey Ray didn't expect this to be a sale, then yeah, we don't have a backup. There's been no rumors. There's no one that we're signing, which puts us in a tougher spot, right? Which then other teams know about that. And then we're going to end up having to pay more. So maybe that's where that cash will come in on the backside. But also, if I'm going to look at it from like a high floor, low ceiling, or a low ceiling, low floor, can you say it that way? I'm going to go with a low ceiling, lower floor on this one because if Bescher and Toyshirt score some goals, it doesn't seem like we're geniuses for getting rid of Klauss, right? Because we still need to have that replacement. But if they don't score goals, and then we're just sitting on some cash, and I understand giving it some time, you got to give it a number of games. But you kind of also got to speed things up because yeah, the MLS season's long, but we know how important points are at the end of the season, right? A tie, just grabbing an additional point by these goals is something that is extremely necessary. And you can't just be, oh, we'll figure something out in the last 2/3 of the season. Your season and your chance at playoffs could be done in the first 10 games. If you do not perform and you underperform there, and then we go into a cold spell going into the World Cup, and then we're coming back like, oh, these guys are going to be all happy and ready to get back at it. No. So maybe we do have a little bit more time there when you think about the World Cup. We can maybe bring a guy in from there. But at that point, it's going to be a little bit too late, in my opinion.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the prospects that are available now to Corey Ray with some of the shifts in the transfer window. And I agree, Justin. I just don't think we're going to rush this, nor should we, in terms of finding that replacement. I'd rather take our time and suffer and get it right than to splurge really quickly and potentially get it wrong on a big sum of money. But we will see Klauss again twice this season, guaranteed. Once the first time in LA on July 22nd, and the second time being back home here on October 11th in STL. The only other prospect I would say would be obviously playoffs after that, and in US Open Cup potentially as well. But that was not the only news that broke today, Justin, like we alluded to earlier on. Rafael Santos has been brought into the club, left back, left wing back type of profile. And he is going to be with us through the entirety of this season with options for the next 2 seasons. The weird part here, Justin, is the way that the club announced it. I don't blame them because we don't know so much yet, but this goes through June of 27, and then it goes through basically this whole season. We have him, and then it goes for the 27-28 season and the 28-29 season. So what's really happening with that, like shortened or half season, whatever they're going to do in early 2027? I guess it's inherent that he'd be here for that. But Rafael Santos is a free agent. We didn't have to pay a transfer fee for him. We didn't have to negotiate for him. He was probably going to be in a senior roster spot. Last year, he made $375,000 a year. So on the upper end of that payment scale. And he's a proven MLS left back, very, very dynamic attacking left back at that. So he's played in back fives, as that wide left. He's played in back fours. So it's just a more advanced left back. I'd say that's where a lot of his strength comes in. He's really fun to watch, kind of marauding up and down that left flank. And he's got a boot on him as well. He has scored some bangers of goals. We're going to go take a look at some of those on YouTube. But Justin, how do you feel about this move? Because, we've got Wallen back now. I think this is probably his position to hold. But is Santos the worst to have coming off the bench or to rotate in and out? I think it's a good signing.
No, I think it's a good signing. I'm a little confused by the timeline on it because as we were talking about it on the flight, it's like, wait, so he's a free agent. Why now? Why not? Why did we do this like a month ago? Get this guy caught up speed, get it all set and done. But you know what? It's a good addition. I'm going to go through his stats real quick, Jake, but I think I then want to talk about why, how did he lose his position? So 27-year-old, he ended the last season with Colorado Rapids. He was traded to them in August from Orlando. But prior to all this, before he came to them, he played down in Brazil for a couple different clubs. Nothing really to note there. Then he was Orlando starting left back in 2023 and 2024. He logged over 2,000 minutes in each season. He started in all 8 of their playoff games during that time. So he was in the regular starting lineup for this team until early last season in 2025, when he was relegated to the bench for David Brecalo, who was naturally a center back. So that's then when he was acquired by Colorado later in the season, realizing, hey, this is starting left back. We need to make a push for the playoffs. Let's bring this guy in. They ultimately didn't make the playoffs. But between those 2 teams, he had 82 regular season appearances for those 2 clubs across those 3 seasons. But, Jake, I want to ask you this. It seems a little odd to me that you have this starting left back who started for you consistently for 2 seasons, playoffs and everything. And then after a third of the season this year, you then replace him with a center back, and he does not see the light of day again. So I want to get your thoughts. Locker room, what is the background situation? Because obviously something's going on, because then he went to Colorado. They didn't re-sign him, and he's just been sitting there as a free agent for the last 3 months.
Yeah, it's difficult because, I wasn't an Orlando fan, wasn't a Colorado fan. I don't really know the ins and the outs, but from just the detail you were talking about with him being replaced by a center back, frankly, I feel like that's kind of where the modern game's going, is a lot of your back four traditionally I feel like if anyone's going to flex, it'll be a center back. Like think about us. Kyle Hebert goes out and plays left back sometimes. We've seen Giannis Horn, the same thing. We've seen guys go flex and go play right back. I feel like teams moving towards having that, the fullbacks even more defensive sometimes in nature when you're playing a back four is kind of where things have shifted, in my opinion. So maybe they were looking for a little bit more of a defensive posture on the left back side. And I just don't think that's Santos's profile, right? Like I think he benefits from having freedom to get up the pitch and to contribute. I will say to his defense, strength wise, he can do it. Like he can score goals, he can have assists. Some of the better things that I saw in his game in his last full season, which I looked at for 2024, were his crossing numbers, his passing accuracy, his recoveries, getting back into position, and having possession one in the final third. He's an aggressive type of fullback. And I think for us, this could be a fit because I like Wallum. I think this guy's different to Wallum. Wallum's a little more technical. I think, if anything, you can kind of invert or push more into the central part of the midfield. Whereas this guy, I think, will provide us more width, a little bit more of that touch to touchline type attitude, and can whip in some good service as well. And again, he may not play over Wallum, but he offers something different, but in the same position. So just another tool in Demay's shed that we know he can do it. Like he's played for Orlando, was a good team in those years, and he logged over 2,000 minutes. So availability, also a good thing, very, very high in this guy. Also, not international spot. He has a green card, so doesn't claim that from us either. So some good positive things coming from the Santos acquisition. But again, yeah, a free agent, not breaking the bank for him. But again, you're also not holding on to him guaranteed for a long time. You're kind of getting this year, see how things go, and then decide we're going to option the next 2 seasons.
Yeah, which I think is an important one to point out, Jake. Like overall, I do think this is good signing. Sorry if I made it negative to start. But yes, we've had a rotating door, a revolving door at left back ever since John Nelson. Shout out to John Nelson, now playing with Joao Klauss in the LA Galaxy, bringing it full circle there. But Jake, shout out to Chat City Tactics, Mike, for putting these together. So I can actually copy and paste this tweet and put it into the comments so everybody else can go out and check some more out about what he has about Santos. But Jake, overall, you're a lot better at reading some of these graphs than I am, not going to lie. I see a lot of green from 2023, and I want to definitely try to voice this to our listeners that aren't being able to see this visually. But ultimately, nothing screams or jumps off the page to me. I will say he's obviously a little bit more of a veteran center or a left back. And you can see just the main thing to point out is that his minutes really decreased last season. Obviously, once he lost his starting role, just getting a total of 1,206 minutes. But his passing has been in the mid-70s, which I think is a left back is extremely important. If he's getting up and down the field, that is not a place where we can lose the ball. But does anything else scream or kind of stand out to you on each of these graphics?
No, not necessarily. It's hard to make too much of last season given kind of the transition between the two teams. But he started for Colorado down the stretch when he was traded. It wasn't like he was just traded for depth. They never played him. He was an important piece of them, and they just barely missed the playoffs as well. So he's valued by MLS clubs. I don't think the statistics necessarily tell the same story when you look at it from this perspective. But again, I think from a profile perspective, it's good to have different types of looks, even in the same position. And it's exciting. Like, I don't think this is going to move the needle for us, but it definitely gives us more depth in a position that we sorely needed it. We signed both our left backs in the last 2 weeks, Justin.
Yeah, which is kind of nuts to me. But you know what? Hey, at some point we talked about it. It's like you got to give Corey Ray a little bit of time to cook. We just brought him on, was it early December? So now he's just got a little bit over a month. And he said that he's been working his tail off. And now you're seeing these things. Like, obviously, this takes time. So I want everybody to also remember that with the cash that we just got for Klauss and now reaching out to these teams, trying to figure this out, especially if you're looking internationally. They're in the middle of their season. Speaking of in the middle of their season, Jake, we are bringing in another newcomer, Dante Polvara, who is going to be coming from Aberdeen FC. Why we that name before, Jake? Oh yeah, that's where Luke Fonesteel is, which is actually probably the main reason we got this deal. We agreed on a $200,000 transfer fee for the 25-year-old dual international. He's U.S. and Italian, and we just have the documents pretty much assigned. But this guy is absolutely coming to City. And Jake, what have you kind of heard about this guy?
Yeah, so whereas I would say Santos is a more of a solidify the roster, I think Dante Polvara is raising our floor even just a little bit, because for me, this is a guy that's been on the rise in the last couple seasons at Aberdeen. He's a New York native. played and starred at Georgetown, where he won the 2021 Mac Herman Trophy Award, which we know, being in that award ceremony, is here. And he immediately made the jump overseas to Scotland and Aberdeen. That's where things kind of took a little bit. It was a slow roll where wasn't able to really get a lot of the game time that he wanted, and took a loan to Charleston Battery FC, where he crossed paths with, friend of the show, AJ Cochran, and he gave us some comments we can bring into here as well. But when he came back after that stint, which he played a lot of minutes on, has been lights out ever since. A big part of Aberdeen FC. He's got an extension on the table from them that sounds like turned down, as well from Hibernian as well in the Scottish Premiership, and Columbus was also interested in him. So good things, right? People are competing for this signature, but it looks like we've won out. I'm excited about him, Justin, because we just got Edelman, right? And I think Edelman is that 6 counterpart to a Chris Durkin, and offers again two kind of different looks in that position. He has a little bit of 6, but also some 8 in him. He's played attacking roles before in sort of that central attacking midfielder 10 position. He's played in the 8, he's played in the 6, but just kind of all through that central midfield spine, he's got some level of quality in. And I've liked what I've heard and seen about him from AJ Justin. He sent us this note. By the way, like you said, 6'4". It's a big dude. Very sneakily athletic from AJ here. Covers a ton of ground, can actually shoot the ball like a rocket. Good in the air, obviously, with that frame, and an amazing guy, too, a good culture piece in the locker room. And this is coming from one of his past teammates. So I don't know where else you want to hear or believe that, but AJ had great things to say about him, Justin. What do you think about this deal and what his role is coming into St. Louis City?
I think this is another guy that, one, I completely agree with you that if you have other teams that are looking for this, one, that's a positive point. That's where I was a little concerned with Santos being a free agent, and I was picking him up last minute. This is the opposite of that, right? And I also want to say, being sent out on loan usually puts like a bad taste. Like people are like, oh, that guy's going out on loan. Like he's kind of done. Like, no, sometimes that works out extremely well. It's like sending a guy down to the minors in baseball and then pulling him back up after he gets his mojo going. And that's what he did. He's already logged almost 1,500 minutes for Aberdeen this season. Remember, they're mid-season, but that's a very important to note. And Jake, the other cool thing that I found out about this was that Aberdeen, even though he went straight there from Georgetown, he signed a 2.5-year deal with them. They had to acquire his rights from New York City FC because he was a homegrown for them. So this kid has been in the MLS system before, then went overseas, came back, did some time with the Charleston Battery and AJ Cochran. Big shout out to Big AJ for a couple of insights here as well. But overall, Jake, I think for the money as well, I'm cool with it. $200,000, drop in the bucket. That's literally less than 10% of what we just spent or what we just got on Joao Klauss. So yes, I think this is a nice addition to the team. Do I see this guy coming in and making an immediate impact? No, I think it'll take time to get some gel, but I think there is a possibility for him to squeak his way into this team in the starting 11, depending on what formation we're going with. And I know we're going to go into depth and pieces here in a second, but this is a guy that at a minimum with his size can definitely get some meaningful minutes for this team. As you know that we're injury ridden, knock on wood, every team is. There's going to be someone going down. I think this guy could be an immediate plug and play in one of those situations.
I think Polvara is your Leuven insurance policy. I think he is not the same profile because, I mean, by the way, not a knock against him. Leuven is exceptional. We all know that. We've all bore witness to that. But you can't count on him for some reasons or another, right? And that's no fault of his own. This is the person that can cover for him in his absence. You can also line up next to him if you want to play a little more aggressively. But we know he can get on the tackles. He's a great dueler. He can also be on the dribble, pretty dangerous through midfield, which we don't have a lot of in this team. And he's a goal threat as well. Like you mentioned, he's got a pill of a shot. So what we're getting from Polvara is a roster rumored right through 2028. He'll have a contract with us with a club option for 29. So that brings us, Justin, to all of these recent signings having at least an option through the 2029 season. So what I'm kind of looking at now with Corey Ray and co is we're kind of building a little bit of a 3 to 4 year runway of a core amount of guys. By the way, these haven't been big splurges, right? Like Wallum, probably the biggest of any of them, but Edelman, Wallum, Santos, now Polvara, who's still rumored, not confirmed yet. None of these guys are breaking the bank, but all of them, to me, are bringing up the depth, right? The guys off the bench, or at least, just raising our floor even ever so slightly, because I think we'll actually go splurge and really go into the market, probably starting this summer or even after that, and build more of that, spine of stars, right? That your true 1As, your true, best player in that position on your team. I think what he's doing, and it's kind of sneaky, kind of going under the radar right now, is he's lifting us up and improving more of the guys that you don't maybe look at it as always starting, at least as a guarantee. And I think Polvara could be a higher upside addition to the midfield. And again, we just need bodies there because we don't have enough. And that was sorely exposed last season.
No, I absolutely agree. And Jake, I shared a comment in here from Clips fan 124 is already signing Mbake Fall, Mamadou Fall, however you want to put it together. But yes, that is still coming. We have heard everything that is pretty much a done deal. We just need the ink to dry and get this guy over here. So that's another addition to this. But Jake, kind of as now we're seeing the pieces fall in place, as you've already mentioned, and that we could see here as well from Creighton Turner, 1493. If we play a back five, I'm good with it. Well, I'm glad you're good with it because it's very likely to happen. When you look at these signings now, when we look at where we're putting Navala, where you look at where we're signing more center backs, even though we already have 5 or 6 as is. This is a team that's looking like we're going with however you want to put it. If you want to put it as back five, I like to think of it as a 3 center back. And then you could have your holding 2 mids, but then your wingers can get up and down. And then from there, Jake, I would still actually like to see a 2 front with a Hartel down the center, because otherwise I don't think you have enough width for your side guys. But Jake, let's talk about what this lineup roster build currently looks like, with still probably a couple pieces still to be made.
Yeah. And so if we're everything that we just talked about, let's say that's all guaranteed now. So everything is guaranteed besides Polvara, which looks all but at this point. And let's also include Mbake in that. So assuming all of the above, so Klauss gone, Polvara in, Santos in, and Mbake in, we've got 2 senior spots left, 2 senior roster spots. One of those could be a DP or U22. So we've got the ability to splash, God willing, on probably our new striker, right? Say the prayers. We've got 2 international spots as well, which is usually a luxury we do not have in this team. But we've got a little more domestic, Justin. That's also sliding on the radar. We've gone American, or at least partially American, right? In some of these, or at least American with green card as well. So we've got a little more domestic in this new window. So we could maybe even sell a roster spot, or international roster spot. That being said, we have 3 supplemental spots as well. And those aren't the ones you like to write home and talk about, but you imagine those get filled with maybe some of our draftees, like Lillington, for example, appears likely, or trialists, like a Palmer Alt type character, or a McNaughton type character. So we've got some flexibility. It's limited at this point, right? We're getting down to those final touches here and there, but we've got a pool of target allocation money. We're sitting on about $1 million from what I'm tracking, and now general allocation money. Obviously, this came out, Justin, not this week, but last week. We were, I think, 4th in terms of the overall, 5th overall most GAM in the league. And GAM, we don't need to talk too much about it, but good to have a lot of GAM. Let's just put it that way. Helps you buy down player salaries, helps you wiggle a lot more on your roster. And also you can convert these cash furs to GAM as well. So you can take that 2.3 from the Klauss outgoing and convert that to GAM. So Corey Ray and co are, as much as they were hamstrung coming in, they're definitely undoing or providing a little more flexibility to what they want to do in the future in this window. And I think they're laying a lot of that groundwork right now.
Absolutely. And I think that it's showing that we're actually now it's not looking like we're having a whole lot of holes. Or a whole lot of holes. Absolutely. Yeah. I hate that came out. We don't have any massive holes. Now it seems like the left back position has been filled. When you look at the 6, who would be sitting next to Leuven, you could then you're likely going to go Edelman or Durkin. Already mentioned, it looks like Polvara could be a great addition to that, or a quick backup to Leuven. And you already have Ostrak, who could also fill in behind these guys. So that's an easy and a quick one. Even though Ostrak is injured currently, we've just kind of already mentioned that, along with Falou Fall. But ultimately, we're starting to see this build out. But I'm not exactly seeing, I don't want to say non-starters of bringing all these guys in, but we're bringing in a lot of guys that could possibly play in a couple different places, which I think is good to have, but great to have. I'd rather just be highly skilled in a certain position and then have a backup here or two in that position. I do think it's helpful. We've already talked to Chat City Tactics Mike about Vala, utility guy. But at some point, when you're paying millions of dollars for a guy that doesn't have a starting spot and you're planning to just kind of throw him where we have a leaky bucket, doesn't always work out. So yes, it seems like the team is being built out. Do I feel like we're like adding to our team total? If you're looking at like FIFA and we're currently sitting at like I'm going to put us in MLS standards, so not say like worldwide. I'm going to say we're sitting at like an 80 out of. No, I don't think we're jumping ourselves up to like an 86 or an 87. But I do think that our bench is So as we have injuries, we're not going to tank as much from a loss of skill perspective, but I think there's still a lot to come with this team.
Yeah, well, I'll just try to summarize, Justin, because I love the graphic that we're kind of looking at in the background. We'll put one together as well for you all to look at, sort of
I'll share
digest. But
this.
yeah, we'll share that. We'll share that. But what you got is Berkey, who is, he's a known commodity for us. I think he's got this, kind of point to prove in this season. So I'm not worried about Berkey. You've got your three center backs, which once you fall off the front three, like the Fall, Baumgartel, Fall, I get a little bit worried about what happens after that. On the wing back situation, I feel great about left wing back now in terms of what we have. Right wing back, you got Totlin, and I think you probably let Tyson Pierce, our homegrown debutize for him, or you could flex one of the other left backs over there if you had to. Don't love that idea. In the central midfield, now you have options with Leuven, Edelman, Durkin, Polvara, Ostrak, like even Miggy Perez if he wants to make the jump up there. It's the attack, Justin, I think I worry about the most in terms of no one here screams, I'm going to score the goals in this team, right? You Betcher's done it before. Toyshirt's done it before. Last year wasn't that year for them. Hartel, we know what he's capable of, and he will be. If Hartel is what he was last year for us, we'll get somewhere. If he can't, replicate that form, even if not elevate it, Justin, I just worry about our prospects in terms of the attacking third.
Yeah, sorry, I was pulling it up. I want to make sure I got this right. Dominic DM'd us, and he's like, "Hey, what are your thoughts on do you think Toyshirt can step up this year?" And the answer is tentatively yes, Jake. I do think he can. We saw those flashes that he gave us when he first came over in that small stint. Last year was a down year, but if we're not bringing anybody in, especially in the first third of the season, he's going to need to step up and take that role. I know you're concerned about who's going to score the goals. I feel confident. I feel like we have a higher floor in that when we move our way up the front. When you look at Hartel goes down or something like that, you put in a Celio and then or Songbin, Toyshirt, Glover, you have Betcher, McSorley, and Alt. I think that we have more of a backup there than, to your point, if we look at the center backs and you're looking at your bench and you're like, all right, Falu Fall is already injured right now. Is it going to be Kyle Hebert? Is it going to be Josh Yarrow? Is it going to be one of our guys that we have currently on trial or just signed with McNaughton and Millington? I don't know. So that's where I get a little bit more nervous. And that's where almost I understand a playing style. You need to make it fit your club and it doesn't have to fit the players. But at some point, I would rather be playing. We talked about this in the flight. I feel more confident in our skill players towards the front end of the goal when you talk about our forwards and our midfields than I do in our center backs right now. And so putting three out there when I already feel like we do not have a great depth, it makes me a little bit nervous.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally valid. I don't know if I agree that we've risen our floor. If I looked at this roster starting last year compared to this year, I think I would take last year's roster at the current moment still, just with some of the talent that we had there. And I'm just not convinced yet. I'm not going to also knock these guys. I'm going to let them play and figure this stuff out. And again, you can only do so much if you're Corey right now. You've inherited a really, really intertwined situation, a lot of contracts that you just inherited and you didn't get to have a say in. So he's doing, I feel like he's doing fine. I'm telling, he's got a passing grade from me right now for what he was inheriting. But Justin, let's pivot off the team for a little bit here and put that to rest. Let's talk a little bit more agnostic of a tournament that we will be featuring in this year. And we always talk about the dual-edged sword, right? The double-edged sword of the US Open Cup for us. So much fun to participate in. We love this tournament. It's historic. It's even got a bigger purse prize now for the winner, but we are not in this tournament yet. We will enter in the round of 32, but the first round is upcoming. It's actually in less than 2 months, and it will feature a St. Louis team as Bohfs, Bohfs, are going to be in the first round of the U.S. Open Cup, and this will be televised on Paramount Plus and CBS Sports Golazo on March 18th. Mark those calendars, March 18th. And Bohfs will be taking on a very familiar foe for St. Louis in Union Omaha, who come from USL League One. And the home game will be played here in town at Lindenwood. So, Justin, there's U.S. Open Cup soccer here again. Remember, this is the first round now of the real tournament. Those were sort of pre-qualifying rounds before where we talked about Bohfs already. But now this is the first round. Then there'll be the second round. And then the round of 32 will kick off in April, mid-April. And that's when City will parachute in.
Dude, I absolutely love one, Bohfs. But also, two, what is up with the Union Omaha schedule always coming down? What did we play? We played them twice already.
Yeah, we did
in U.S. Open Cups, and we've only been in two. Like, it's just very confusing to me. And now they're coming back down, but I absolutely love it, Jake. Have that at Linwood. It's going to be an athlete packed game. I'm going to be there for it. And I think we're going to try to get as many people in St. Louis as we can, because that is an electric time. And I love what the note that you have in here. This is the third year in a row that sees the U.S. Open Cup first round is made up of exclusively pro versus amateur matchups. Again, creating a massive possibility for some storylines that could have very fun potential. Talk about boths. And yes, I know that people are like, well, Union Omaha, like, no, they are technically a pro team in the USL. If you don't follow it, that is a pro within, and they've got some other stuff going on in the USL we're going to have to cover at some point. But that is a professional team, and they're taking on boths, which Jordan Klitsch, again, buddy that I played with in high school, played at Memphis. He's at Veta 24/7. He's on this team, and that's what makes these storylines great. Jake, I was just at a wake earlier today for the Reese family down at Kuda's Funeral Homes. They've won U.S. Open Cups. Like, it's an awesome history in St. Louis, and I'm excited that it's coming back, and it will be at Lindenwood on March 18th.
And again, remember too, U.S. Open Cup, we talked about it last year as an opportunity for silverware, because as St. Louis City, again, you drop in the round of 32. You've got to win that game, then get to the round of 16, win that game. Then you got quarters, semis, finals. That's 5 matches. If you can win those 5 matches, you've got hardware. The U.S. Open Cup final is not until October 21st. So this tournament, officially begins in the first round in March 17th, and it runs all the way from the next 7 months to October 21st, where we will hopefully be making a run, at least a run, just in this tournament. I feel like we've only won ever one game in this tournament in the round of 32. Let's make a push. Let's prioritize it. We know some teams don't, right? Like, take advantage of that. See what you can do. Obviously St. Louis is always going to take this tournament seriously whenever we're in it, regardless for whatever reason we are in it. So I really hope the team can make a little bit of a push this year and make sure April is not the end of our time in the U.S. Open Cup. And God willing, what if it was Boves versus St. Louis City SC? That would be something else. We can all dream. We can all dream, Justin. But hey, you mentioned USL, because obviously Union Omaha plays in USL. You said we're going to talk about it sometime. I've got some notes in here, Justin, and I've got some things I want to pick your brain on, because it's happening. We talked about USL probably months ago now when they made this announcement, but today they officially announced now they are doing this new multi-tier men's professional soccer structure, or pyramid, right? And that really is the biggest piece of that right now, is right now they have the championship, which is, the tier 2, and they have, League 1 and they have League 2. So they kind of fill out the rest of the pyramid, but they don't have that top echelon. That's MLS right now. Only MLS is there. Well, USL says we are going to bring in USL Premier, which is going to be their Division 1. Currently doesn't exist today. They are saying this will be launched in 2028, and their target is to have about 20 clubs by the end of their filling this out. This will be a single table league, and it will feature promotion relegation. Right now, they got about 14 clubs that they have pinned, or at least thought about, to be a part of that first Division 1. 8 or 9 of those are actually be championship level clubs now that are elevated or make the jump up. The other clubs will be expansion teams as well. But Justin, what do you think about this? Like, good for the game, good for MLS to kind of get a little push or a little kick in the arse, as some folks overseas might say. What do you think about USL making this push?
It's intriguing to me, Jake, because I don't think that there's enough money or structure right now for the MLS to ever be included in this. I think we are well far away from that. And also it seems like they're doing their own kind of spinoff, just making their own separate league. And I would say it's good that we're having more levels of soccer in the States. That's a positive. But ultimately, it's not good if it's not all in one, right? And so maybe what their thought process is, hey, we're going to go do this over here. Once we get it built out, you want to just like push us underneath of you, and then we can start working relegation with the MLS. And maybe that'll work out in the long run. I would not see that occurring anytime in even the next 20 years, as you're seeing the total value of these MLS teams skyrocket. We just saw MLS Sporting Kansas City just sold for what they would have been valued at for the entire club of $700 million. I can tell you right now, there's not, and I'll be hand up if I'm incorrect, there's not a single USL championship team that's worth over $80 million. And I think I think I'm very well within my reins of saying that. And so I think it'll take a lot of time for growth. I do think that, like I said, long story short, I think it's great to have more levels of soccer in the U.S. It gives more people opportunity. It'll also just boost our floor. I don't know why I'm stuck on that so much here, but boost our floor as a country in soccer as we keep guys just playing, and it gives them a better chance. If you think about this, I'm going to connect it real quick to the UFL and the NFL. You've seen guys go from the UFL to the NFL. It's almost been like a breeding ground for them. I'm not saying it's the whole reason they do it, but that does make a better possibility to keep these guys fresh. And I think we can have a similar situation here. I just don't like that it seems like they're trying to just do it almost in competition with the MLS. I would like to see them work together, but also they're probably just like, we need to do relegation. And MLS is like, no chance, buddy. Get in line and grow your team just like we did.
Yeah, I have a lot of mixed feelings about it. I'll start from the positive. I think if it can just kind of, like we mentioned last week, with everyone benefits from having like a villain in their story or like something to chase. If USL lights some sort of flame underneath MLS to be more progressive as a league or to change XYZ, to evolve and, maybe take some of the best practices from other leagues, both here and around the globe, fine by me. I like competition. Competition is good. I will also say this is a hefty, hefty goal, a lofty ambition from USL to do this, because again, it's going to take expansion teams, going to need markets, going to need owners. And by the way, these owners are opting in to a promotion relegation league that has a lot of consequences if things don't go well, which is very different to what's going on in MLS right now. Like, let's just take Sporting, for example, because it's fun. Sporting, we're in a league of 30 teams right now, right? Where you have 30 teams here in MLS now. And, in most leagues, I'll take the Premier League, for example, 20 teams. The bottom 3 get relegated after the season. I'm going to say for 30 teams, maybe the bottom 4, bottom 5 get relegated, Justin. And, the ownership just sold and transitioned, turned over for $700 million for Sporting Kansas City, by the way. Again, not even one of the biggest clubs. Sporting Kansas City would have gotten relegated the last 2 seasons. So their club would not be worth that much money had this MLS structure not been in place for them to sort of almost be sheltered in a way. Things work so financially different between USL and MLS. So they're going to need a lot to go right to get this right and to become feasible, a viable league and a viable competitor. I think right now it feels a little bit pressy. You know what I mean? Like, oh, well, big ambitions. We're going to do these press conferences and we have, these huge dreams of becoming, or maybe even eventually replacing Major League Soccer in the United States as the premier league for the United States of America when it comes to soccer. I don't think it's impossible. I think the timing's good with the World Cup being here, with the Olympics being here, with soccer kind of on the upward trajectory here in the United States. But it's going to take so many positive tailwinds for this to get off the ground and to become something that everyone wants to be a part of. But God, if they can do it, all power to them. They just have such a long way to go.
They have an extremely long way to go, Jake. And that's where I want to make sure they're towing the line of taking money away from the MLS as they're trying to grow this. And at some point, it's better to have one strong structure together than it is to have two kind of working your way up there. So, like I said, it's going to take a lot of money. And Jake, guess what? You could make a lot of money. In partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook, new customers can use code BWSCL, bet $5, and get $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. The MLS doesn't kick off for another 3 weeks. But if you got that soccer itch, we've got 18. Yes, Jake, 18 Champions League games tomorrow, all kicking off at 2 p.m. And you could stay in the action and use your bonus bets on DraftKings for some same-game parlays. If you want to take money lines, you take spreads, team totals, whatever you feel comfortable with, you could use those and do that tomorrow. So you need to sign up for DraftKings Sportsbook using code BWSTL, bet $5, and get $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino in Kansas, wager tax pass-through may apply in Illinois. 21 and over in most states. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer.
I'm so glad we got that guy to read that.
The third co-host, that guy.
We're gonna have producer Lou give it a shot.
Oh man, well, I mean, so we just talked about USL, Justin. Let's go back to the real, contender right now in Tier 1 for US soccer, and that's MLS. And they're not resting on their laurels. They're continuing to evolve. I think again, they're feeling a little bit of that steam starting to build up from the world slowly looking towards our direction and right before we host this massive tournament and host 2 more massive tournaments in the next 5 years after this one. And they're changing, some of their roster regulations around MLS. And I'm not going to go too heavy into all the details around here, but just like we talked about with Klauss, these cash for player trades, you might hear them called cashfers. That's the cool kids say. That's the lingo there. There are no more limits now on how many times teams can buy MLS players with cash. There used to be, I think, a rule of 2, and that is now gone. It encourages, or it almost builds, like a very real domestic market now to be able to swap players domestically here within the league. And it really rewards the clubs that are willing to spend those resources instead of just hoarding assets. And it lets proven MLS players become easier to acquire, especially in the midseason. There's also going to be less restrictions now on intra-league loans. Age limits are gone. By the way, there was one, which I thought was crazy. Age limits are gone. Quality limits are gone. Teams can now loan or move players via loan much more freely. There's also some changes going on with domestic player status deadlines being removed. So there's no now hard deadline for players to count as domestic players. So you know how Justin City, the last, probably really more so last season, the season prior, had big news in the offseason or preseason to say, oh, well, Teuscher's been missing, or Ostrak's been missing, or Klauss has been missing, or Leuven's been missing for acquiring their green card. You can now do that on more of a fluid basis. It doesn't need to be squeezed in the offseason or during the preseason. So that helps with roster management. There's more fluidity now to the season. And I also want to mention the last one, Justin, too, is there's more international roster slot flexibility now. So you know how we talked about, we might sell one of our roster spots because we probably won't need one when it comes down to it. And we've also gone a lot more domestic with our recruitment these last couple of weeks and months. You can now trade those and return those to original club original club at an agreed upon date or time. So very useful in that late summer window. So if you want to buy one, you don't necessarily have to buy one or sell one for perpetuity. You can also just do this deal for a very set duration or time period, which gives teams some flexibility. So I think if you're Corey Ray, whatever document or thing that was put out with all this in there, this just became your best friend. It's a new toolkit for GMs, for directors of soccer, for recruitment to look at, to really get familiar with, because those that can master this very quickly will become some of the best movers in the market.
Yeah, Jake, and I think the last one that we have on here as well is one that could now really apply directly to us, almost very similar to what the LA Galaxy did, but we do it in a later window. DPs, this is a midseason DP flexibility. So DPs acquired via cash trades in the secondary window can use the midseason budget changes. Why does this matter for us? It's a legitimate midseason, like, hey, we're going all in. Either you are trying to make a push, either to make the playoffs, but I think at this time it would really be for teams that are like hovering on like that like 5 or 6 range where you're kind of there and you're like, I want to go for it. Or you're in the 1 or 2 seed and said, screw it, we're going absolutely all in. And this makes it a realistic contender for them. If you can buy a DP for a cash trade, which is exactly what we just did for Klauss for $2.4 million, this is something that teams can do in the middle of the season and gives them a lot more flexibility to do so.
And the windows have also moved. So they changed the roster regulations. But again, that to me is the beginning of, again, everything for me is pointing towards the first full 2027-28 season where we've shifted the fall-spring calendar and away from our current one. Those things are the beginnings of that. These transfer windows have also changed. And again, I think it's much more a beginning versus an end. But big picture, they announced transfer window changes for the 2026 season. It might look minor on the surface, but this is sort of a bridge towards a big structural change when it comes to how we do business and when we do business. So the transfer dates, we have a primary window and a secondary transfer window. The primary window is that winter window. It's January 26th to March 26th this year, which is a month shorter than it has been in the past. The secondary transfer window is July 13th to September 2nd. So that very much a summer window. And that is now a month longer. And why, you might think? We're lengthening the summer and shortening the winter because that's what everyone else does. You know what I mean? That's when everyone is more active. That's when you'll be able to catch a little bit more late deals. You won't be hamstrung as you go to your final push. But it's really more so, I feel like, sort of moving our needle just a little bit so it feels a little more subtle as we do finally get to the end game, which is that fall-spring calendar and the windows that align perfectly with overseas.
Which is a question here from Creighton Turner, 1493. Winter divisions coming in. It's also going to be happening when we're making this flip on the schedule, right? So when we're going to have that like short season, then we're going to flip to divisions. And that's what we kind of alluded to earlier on in a couple episodes. I think we have it broken down in one of the reels as well, if anybody wants to go back to that. But Jake, all of that to say, we're making all these changes more with the world, which is only going to help us improve and grow as a club, or sorry, not as a club, as an organization and the MLS as a whole. Because guess what? Same thing with the USL. If you try to just go off and divert and do your own thing while the rest of the world is doing this, you are not going to succeed. The rest of the world's soccer leagues are much larger than Major League Soccer. And we are now going to get slowly closer to aligning with them, because then we're able to buy later, sell later. And I love the point that you have in here. We can react to the international market movements instead of trying to guess on them. Because right now we are truly like, oh, I'm going to go try to pick up this guy in the middle of the season of their season, which is less likely over there. Or if you want to wait for their season to end, we're in the middle of our season, which doesn't make a lot of sense, because a guy just finished an entire season over in the EPL, La Liga, Bundesliga, whatever you want to call it. And then he's coming right into another half season here, just bound for an injury. And you're willing to spend money on that. It just doesn't make sense. And now we're slowly starting to align to it. And I absolutely love it.
I do too. Actually, I wanted to bring this back, but the Polvara of it all. I mean, the guy will have played basically a better part of a season by the time he even gets to us. So I worry about that a little bit. Could be a long 2020, end of 25, all of 26 for him as he goes from the Scottish Premiership to MLS here. Worry about that a little bit. But back to this point, Justin, what does this mean for us as fans? And like, what are we going to look out for? More transfer drama. Who doesn't love it? Stick it in my vein. It is fun to watch all these links and these deals kind of run out. Obviously, we're still looking at what's going on with Josh Sargent right now. More rumors that actually a little more time to breathe and materialize. Sometimes things just don't get done because there's not enough time. And that sucks. And now this gives a little bit more time for that. There's less missed opportunities. And I think the increased relevance of deadline days for us, later season signings, international news cycles. What I'm going to be looking out for, Justin, is in this year, as we sort of, I feel like, put the training wheels on to prep us for the next, actual fall spring calendar shift, is do clubs use the latter part of that secondary window in September? Will we see some big names maybe arrive late because it aligns better with the global market? How will we see those playoff contenders really loading up on the assets or the depth pieces or the rentals to actually make a big push? How will rebuilding teams operate in this window? So we're in a really interesting time right now where I feel like it's a tipping point of sorts, where roster rules and regulations are being relaxed even ever so slightly. And the windows are also being modified to align more to a global sort of perspective or scale. How does this impact how everyone does business? I just think things are going to change so remarkably much over the next 2 to 3 years with this calendar shift. And I just think we're starting to see the underpinnings of it.
Right. And sorry, Jake, I got kind of sidetracked. So I was like, once you mentioned that he's going to pretty much be playing a full season, Polvara, when he comes over, guys that played less than 1,500 minutes, which is expected to be what Polvara had played prior to coming here last season, you would have had key contributors that I would consider Celio, 1,477 minutes, Leuven, 1,400 minutes, Kessler, 1,400 minutes, Toyshirt, 1,300 minutes, Simon Betcher, 1,239 minutes, Durkin, 1,100 minutes. So this guy is coming in, like you said, pretty much almost a full season under his belt for I would say a role player on a team, but it's still going to be a very long him, which I think that he's going to be a consistent role player for this team. Like I said, I don't think he's going to be coming in doing an automatic start for this job, but I do think he's going to be an important contributor. But all that to say, we won't have this problem in the future because we're going to start aligning our windows with the rest of the world.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of, again, it's feels so close but so far away, and it's not local here. Like, it's not impacting our club at the moment. It really impacts Corey Ray a lot and how he will do business more in the future, which fans can probably give two craps about sometimes. But there's a couple questions here I want to monitor before we close out the show here, Justin. We got one from Landon. And Landon, we kind of touched on this a little bit before, but do you guys think we need to make a move for a striker now? Or do you take a gamble on Seti being healthy and Betcher and Joyner being more consistent? I almost think it's not even a gamble just to say that, this happened so late on that we're not going to gamble by buying a striker now. Like, that's more of a gamble to me than saying, let's just hope that Betcher and Toyshirt and maybe even Joyner can help keep us afloat. I just think, again, quality here. You got to get this search right. We've gotten a lot of searches wrong in our short history as a club. Take your time. Get the striker that brings you to the next level, not someone that just because we're screaming loud enough as fans.
No, absolutely. I think I'm in the same boat. I think it's a fair question. And that's probably where fans are like, all right, you got rid of Klauss. Now who's your replacement? But there's no point in rushing it because otherwise we just sold that and we're going to dish that cash out for probably not, I'm not saying pennies on the dollar, but it's not going to be worth the value of the cash we're spending if we actually take the time to be like, no, if a club tries to force us into a deal, we need to be able to have the maturity and the slowness to be like, no, we're going to ride with what we got right now, which is a little scary, but a fair question nonetheless. So I'll read this one to you, Jake. Clips fans 124. Do you think we have a chance to make the playoffs this season? Oh my God, I didn't even read it before I read it out loud. If I was a betting man and I was setting odds, I would put us at making the playoffs at like plus 280. And the reason, so Jake, the reason I would say plus 280 for everybody who doesn't know, if you put down $10, you would win 28 plus your money back to the 10. So that means that it's less likely that we're going to make it than likely. But Jake, the reason that I don't think that those odds would be worse at like plus 500 is because in the MLS, it's actually harder to miss the playoffs than it is to make it, which is pretty insane when you look at it. 18 teams make the playoffs out of 30. That means only 12 don't make it. So you have a higher probability just on numbers of making the playoffs. But this team, I just don't know if we made enough moves in the offseason that were actually helpful to the team. Obviously, we just made a big splash and we have a lot of cash. But currently, I don't think it's enough for a team that was already battling for the wooden spoon. What are your thoughts?
I would maybe put the odds maybe slightly improved, but I'm not. I wouldn't put a lot of money on it, frankly, because it just so much can change in this game. Like you think about what happened to the Galaxy last year. MLS Cup winners, yes, you lose Ricky Pooch. Otherwise, you didn't lose a whole lot. Like you lost Joveljic, but you also had great players in this team, and they were a dumpster fire for the first half of this season. They got back on track for the second half, but it was too late. I just feel like this season for us, it cannot be tipping the scales too far in the wrong direction. Like you've got to be somewhat consistent. I just don't know if I can put it on this team to have that consistency over the term. If you'd say that Klauss is still in the team, Justin, I think that alone moves that number up significantly for me. But knowing and just feeling that we're not going to replace him at least immediately in the short term, even before this primary window closes, that it's going to be a tall order.
And Jake, the reason that I'm looking one thing up because I think JB Goodbody brought up a point here. He said we need to spend $4 million on a 9, which would be our replacement for Klauss. Jake, what are your thoughts on this? Because I'm trying to think like, okay, we just got $2.4 million in cash. We are also 5th in GAM with $6.1 million. And the reason I bring this up is what do you think is just take the names away. What do you think is a range that you would like to see City spend? And also that you think they're willing to spend on getting a replacement for Klauss?
I think they're willing to spend above $4 million on a striker for sure. I would put it. I think they could go above 5 as well, and I think you get some good deals in that area as well. Like I don't think they're going to splash 10, 12 million on someone. It's just such a swing, and we've seen transfers like that just not pan out either, and we can't afford for that to happen. Like we're not a club that can just say, all right, well, that one didn't work out. Let's move on to the next one and do a termination with this person or try to shift them on like Justin Chucky Lozano, San Diego FC. They buy him. They fork over what, like 15 million for him for PSV, and they come out in preseason in a press conference and say he will not play for the team again. Well, they don't just get to wipe that. Like they have to get rid of him, and they're eating that for a long time. So St. Louis, we just have different, mid-market. It's totally different for us, but I do think just given how much money we've accumulated with some good deals that we've been able to see on the outgoing side, I do think the club will splurge, but it's not for me if, it's more of when.
Yeah, Jake, now we just opened up a can of worms. Now JB's coming at you saying 5. And then we got Ella Dragon saying 19 for Sargent. Let's pump the brakes. I do want to give a quick shout out. Would have been a cool one for us to sign. Just as like obviously not going to be the main guy. I would like to be the main guy. Tom Barlow. Kind of let that just go right to Cincy. Imagine bringing that home. If everybody didn't see our story, Tom Barlow, St. Louis, born and raised, Chaminade, St. Louis, Scott Gallagher, went to Wisconsin. Now he's on Cincy, and he's going to be a striker for them. I'm wishing him the best, but I would like to see him come home as well.
Yeah, that'd be fun. That'd be fun, certainly. Well, we can dream. I think we'll be doing a lot of that through the first part of the season with this window coming up on us, right? Like it'll be here before we know it. And there's still more business to do. And the team's been working ever so hard to try to find that Klauss replacement. But, again, I'd rather get it right And I do think you're going to see some guys get chances for minutes here that you would not have seen before. So it's going to cause a big shift in this team and in this approach, and people stepping up into roles or shoes they haven't had to fill before. So there's a lot of opportunity out there. I want to see some guys reach out and take it. So if anything, I'm excited for that.
And Jake, I'm going to also end us on another positive note here. I want to give a quick shout out to Lutz. I'm being serious. I really do think that us getting Polvara, he could have easily gave us the double middle fingers and just be like, oh, you guys want him? Well, so does Columbus. I'm going to give him to Columbus. I think it shows good faith and goodwill from him. I think he's still connected to the club. Obviously, things I don't think all ended on good terms. He seemed a little bit like a scapegoat. You could kind of take that however you will. But also, I want to give a shout out to Corey Ray. I do think that we've been kind of blessed. No, I want to say blessed. What am I thinking of the word? That we're wow, I hate this. That we've just had so many signings. Spoiled. Words are tough this late at night. We've been kind of spoiled in this last signings rolling in and just filling roles. And yeah, you might not agree with all of them, but this man's putting in work and putting in overtime. This isn't even to speak about all the signings that he's probably put hours or days into that and fall through and you don't even hear about. So shout out to Corey Ray and team. It's a tough one. We're going to be behind this team regardless of the season. We're here with you guys the whole time. So I'm rooting for him. We might have some difficult conversations every now and then, but I really do want to recognize the hard work from Corey Ray and shout out to Lutz for giving us that deal.
Amen. There'll be some toxic positivity from us, Justin. I don't think we're going to be all doom and gloom at all times this year, even if things aren't going well. One, that's not fun. Two, we'll be honest, definitely. But there are, again, soccer's fun. The sport is fun. Having a team in St. Louis is fun. Would you rather not have a team or what? I mean, so we're going to be supportive. We're going to enjoy the journey because, by the way, you can't appreciate the ups until you've also felt some of these downs. And yes, we've had a couple downs, but the good times are hopefully ahead down the way. And you got to be here and stick with it to actually fully, truly appreciate those.
The good times are absolutely on the way, and the good times are going to be had at the pitch. Get to the pitch for the home opener, dude, on February 21st. A day game, going to be absolutely electric. And Jake, the one other positive note on this, we're going to be underdogs in a lot of games this year. That's some good money to be making on sports betting. Let's ride.
Awesome. Love it. Well, thank you all for tuning in. Appreciate it. Make sure you like and subscribe to us here on YouTube if you're tuning in here. If you're on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, whatever podcast platform of choice, make sure you throw us a subscribe or even leave a rating or review or comment down below. We always appreciate some listener feedback. We appreciate you all. And we'll talk with you all again next week, maybe with some new news. Who knows here, Justin? But in the meantime, all for City.